All right, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second annual CEO Super Series virtual fireside chat with Pipeline 5. This series offers a platform to interview CEOs, executives about their professional journeys and provide valuable advice for youth navigating today's AI-driven world. And this segment aims to connect leaders in today's workforce with youth seeking guidance to have rich and engaging conversations to learn about building skill sets for the future workforce. My name is Bobby Nishimwe, and I am moderating today's conversation where I'm joined by Kathy Kay, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Principal Financial Group, where she is responsible for overseeing the company's global technology and digital strategies, IT and digital operations, Principal Global Services, and innovation that supports current and future business needs. Kathy will lead an insightful conversation on innovating in the age of AI. Drawing from her deep expertise in technology and leadership, she will offer valuable insights into how AI is transforming industries and redefining the future of work. And Kathy Kay will also reflect on her personal journey into tech and highlight the essential skills needed to thrive in the evolving workforce. Kathy Kay, I am excited to have you on today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks for the nice introduction as well. Really excited to be here.
Well deserved. And just to get started with our conversation today, I was hoping if I could maybe take you back a little bit, just maybe a few years back into your childhood. If you could just talk a little bit about your upbringing,
years,
your childhood, and just specifically touching on sort of like any challenges that you might have faced and how you overcame them to eventually end up in your current role as a Chief Information Officer at Principal Financial Group.
Sure. So thank you for saying just a few years back. I would say it's a lot of years back that we're going, but so I grew up in the city of Detroit, and my dad worked on the line automotive. My mom had never graduated in from high school. She worked as a secretary. And what I would say is part of the challenge growing up was I had never envisioned there was an opportunity to go to college. Just being able to have some sort of a stable job was sort of the goal going through high school. And I was lucky enough in high school. I went to a Detroit public high school called Osborne. It's on the northeast side of Detroit, but I was able to get help from an organization in the city of Detroit that helped students in different schools across Detroit, understand their potential, understand their value. A lot of us didn't even understand what the art of the possible was. Going into high school, as much as I would have liked going to college, I didn't even know that it could really be an opportunity because I knew that my parents would not be able to afford it and didn't understand a lot of the opportunities that were available. But because of this organization, I started believing in myself and got a lot of help and support, and ultimately got a full ride scholarship to Wayne State University, which is in the city of Detroit. And I studied computer science, which sort of started my career. I will say, though, that I started as a pre-med student. And wow. I always dreamed of being a doctor, but in my first semester, I hated biology. I realized I hated biology, and I looked at at all of the classes in pre-med, and I think every semester had some sort of biology class. So I knew this was not going to be a good choice for me. And so I took a computer science class in my next semester. I liked math and logic and things like that, and ended up really loving it. And it helped that it was one of those careers that paid well. There was lots of opportunity. And so that's how I really ended up going into computer science. And the rest is history. I would say I went to General Motors from there as a programmer in their research laboratories. And I worked with a lot of scientists who were doing all different types of research related to the automotive industry. And I spent most of my career at General Motors, also at OnStar when it was a startup. And then I went into financial services. I worked at a couple different banks. Each move helped grow my responsibilities and leadership. And then I moved out to California and I worked at Pacific Gas and Electric Utility, and then came to principal. And here I am.
What an incredible story, and just sort of how you overcame the various challenges that you faced. But I have to commend you. I did take a computer science class in college, and I quickly realized, probably a few weeks into it, that this was not going to be sort of the career I was going to end up in. But obviously, from what you just said, you had a wide range of experiences, right? Both in various sectors and industries, companies and organizations of different sizes. So I'm curious, for those who may not know, sort of, what does being a chief information officer entail at such a large organization such as Principal?
So you gave a little bit in the introduction of the responsibilities, right? So I'm responsible for all of the technology, strategy. Think of all the systems that help run the company and serve our customers. So the IT operations, all of that is sort of table stakes. What I will also say, though, is I'm also responsible for understanding the business, making sure that I understand how the work that we're doing across the technology community really aligns to our strategy, making sure that we're building capabilities that are going to serve the customers in the way that we want to, that are also going to move the needle in building capabilities that drive our strategy. So it's not just about our IT, although that's a huge part of my role. It's also about making sure that we have technology that's driving the business, enhancing customer experience, and creating long-term value. And so I spend probably more of my time with my business colleagues, understanding their problems, what's going on, as well as I do in the, with the technical community.
Yeah. And so speaking of sort of your business expertise or deep experience within business, a little bird might have told me a certain story about how at one point you might have started a gaming company with your son. But the interesting thing is that I also heard that your daughter actually works within the gaming industry. And I sort of had a two-pronged sort of question. The first one being, could you talk a little bit about sort of why you wanted to start a gaming company with your son in the first place, and maybe what that taught you about, starting an organization, a startup, or a company, and just overall what that experience was like?
Yeah, so I will say we never really started it because I couldn't get his buy-in, but I'll tell you the backdrop. So when he was I think from the time he was in 10th grade, he said he wanted to be a dentist. And, oftentimes kids go into college like I did as pre-med and changed my trajectory, right? And so I am very passionate about computers, and I always wanted to run a game company. And I don't know why, because I don't play a lot of video games. I just love that whole industry. It was growing. People are really creative. And I thought it would be really fun to build a game that would help entertain people. And so it was just one of those things I always wanted to do. My son loved playing video games while he was in high school. And so I would tell he and my daughter, I think we could start this game company just in case you decide you don't like dentistry when you get into your, pre-dental program. It's just a different avenue. I was passionate about them understanding technology. And so this one weekend, they were gone, and I downloaded this animation engine, and I thought, I'm going to build this quick animation and show them that we could actually do this, and I'll talk them into this grandiose game. And we had a game idea too, right? So I spent this whole weekend, and I literally, got this little female character to walk across the street, which I was super impressed with. My kids got home, And they were so unimpressed. They were like, you spent the whole weekend getting a girl to cross the street. Really? This is what you think? We're never going to build a game company if that's how you code. So it kind of, distracted them from wanting to do that. But then as my daughter, you're right, she works for the game called Fortnite at Epic Games. She's a producer there. But when she was going to college, she was undecided with what she wanted to do. So, of course, here's me. Take a computer science class. You're going to like it. She did a lot of web design. So she kind of had that aptitude. Her first semester, she took a computer science class like you, Bobby, hated it. I mean, I think she would message me every single day. I hate this class. There is no way I'm ever going to program again. It's killing me. But what it helped her do is understand that there are other opportunities in technology. And so she met with her advisor and she explained that she liked the creative side of technology. And so he suggested she go into game design. And so I, of course, was super happy about that because I wanted to live vicariously through her doing that. And so that's what she did. She ended up going through and getting her degree in game design and then ultimately started working at game companies.
Well, that's wonderful. So somebody in the family ended up in the gaming business somehow.
Yes, not me. And that's okay. But if either of them ever decide they want to do a game company, as I keep telling them, I'm a really good worker.
Yeah. So moving a little bit away from gaming into sort of one of the main topics that we want to talk about today. Obviously, as a chief information officer of a leading financial firm, you're sort of in a prime position to witness firsthand how technology is transforming industries. Can you start by sharing how you define innovation in the context of AI and how it's reshaping the financial industry?
Yeah, innovation is about leveraging, this is how I think about it, leveraging data-driven intelligence to create smarter, faster, more secure financial solutions, if you will. And so it's not just about automation, but using it to solve problems differently than we've been able to solve them with past technologies. So think about ways of doing predictive analytics differently, ways to better engage with our customers if our employees who interact with our customers, as an example, have tools that really help them serve the customers more effectively because we've been able to leverage an AI that helps anticipate maybe what their questions might be or information they might ask for. So being able to help our employees work differently, and innovation to me is really about that more generally, right? How do we understand a problem and think creatively to solve it? It's also about new invention, but I tend to think about innovation more in these small little improvements and ways of creating solutions that solve problems differently. I will say AI is definitely transforming not only the financial industry, but all industries. If you think about ways to help your employees do their work differently, is really how I think about it. And I think when generative AI first came to be, it was all about, it's going to replace all of these people. We'll never need a developer again. All these people's jobs are going to be eliminated. And I think what everybody's finding is that if you use this technology in conjunction with employees or humans, you get a much better opportunity to create new value and solve problems way differently than just eliminating jobs. And so that's how we think about it. It does unlock efficiencies for sure, but leveraging that capacity such that our people can use that time to solve the harder problems is where you really see value unlock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's wonderful, sort of viewing AI as sort of an enhancer, less so than a replacer, if you will, in that sense, in terms of the role that it can definitely add to the workforce. And I was curious, obviously, as AI evolved, it's essential for professionals to be adaptable, right, to this technology. How have you personally developed the ability to stay flexible and continuously learn throughout your career, particularly in an industry so influenced by rapid technological change?
From the time I started programming, change was constant in technology. New languages, new, types of ways to leverage technology. Companies were becoming more and more dependent on computers in ways that every year seems somewhat different. And so it's, as a technologist, there's a recognition, or at least early on for me, that I had to find ways to continually learn to stay relevant. And so being willing to try new languages, being willing to understand sort of where technology is heading is really important. And so it's always been part of my, DNA, if you will, to constantly try and stay abreast. What I would say is really challenging now is the pace of change. And things are happening so much more quickly, and especially with AI emerging the way it has been in the past couple of years, solutions and pace are changing so much more quickly. And so, I am one who stays, I read a ton. I love talking with different partners that we leverage to learn more, talking to different startups. Of course, all of my teams, I love learning from them. They are staying abreast of things. And so using all of the different opportunities, looking at what VCs are investing in, are all ways to continue to understand where change is going. I also have a huge network of peers, different CIOs that we will connect and ask each other. I have mentors who I don't hesitate to tap to learn. But I think it's really constantly trying, under keeping abreast, but then being willing to try things. So AI, especially generative AI, has made it so much easier for people to consume. You're just speaking in English. And so I think being willing to continue to try things as well as continue to learn is really important, so that I can understand how the technology works. I can understand some of the pitfalls and be able to speak knowledgeably, with my peers and my teams, I think is really important. So those are some of the things that I do.
Yeah, and sort of almost continuing on with that, in addition to sort of technical expertise, that are needed within working within this specific field or working with AI. Many leaders in AI and tech sort of also stress the importance of soft skills like communication, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills as well. How have these skills helped you lead AI initiatives and innovate within your organization? And also, how can students sort of cultivate those same skill sets in order to almost, be prepared for a world where they're going to have to be working with AI, and AI might be a little bit better at certain skills than maybe they are, and there's an area for human beings to offer more to the workforce than AI is able to at the exact same time. And so, how have you thought about these soft skills as you've done your work, but also how can students think about these soft skills as they prepare for the future workforce?
Sure. Early on in my career, I remember one of the senior IT executives, this is way back when I was working at General Motors, made this comment. And at first I kind of was like, but then I realized what he meant. And, he said the technology is the easy part. That's the easy part. Having the right conversations, understanding the true requirements, understanding the business, what's top of mind, and being able to speak in business terms such that your counterparts can really understand how technology can help them is really critical in order to be successful in IT. And like I said, at first I was like, I don't know, I'm struggling with some of the coding I'm doing, right? But he was right. And I think being able to listen and understand and then translate some of these complex issues in a way that you can think about how technology might improve a situation is really interesting. And then being able to talk with not only your technical teams, but your business counterparts and customers in a way that they can understand it in their terms. So if I'm speaking to people who are deep technically and need to go deep, I better be able to understand that technology so I can understand what they're struggling with. Conversely, being able to meet with business partners who are struggling with a way that they need to improve a business capability or serve customers differently, I really need to speak in that. So I think it's really important to be able to practice that. And then also practice critical thinking. How do you make sure you understand problems and problem solve? And then I would say also, this is something that you just have to continue to practice. I remember early on in my career, I was always so nervous talking, in a forum, and being able to simplify things in a way that people could understand it. I was terrified. But the only way to get better at doing that is continue to practice. And so leaning into it. And so for students, I would say you have to do the same thing, right? Not only engage in the technology, play with it, don't shy away, but also being able to have these conversations and reach out, network, even meet with, professionals who are in maybe, a career or an industry that you're interested in. Ask questions, have those conversations. I think it's really important to be able to tell stories effectively such that people can understand your points of view and your suggestions, and just engage and practice is really important.
Yeah, well, thank you for that guidance and advice. And obviously, we talked a little bit about sort of like how AI is impacting both the financial industry, but just industries writ large currently right now. I'm curious as to what do you believe is sort of the future of AI in both the finance industry and beyond, and how can innovation in the tech space also help to solve broader global challenges, that as a society we may be facing or may face in the near future?
Right. So it is definitely changing the world. AI is. There's no question about it. When you think about all the different things that are going on, one of the things that I was so I listened to a lot of podcasts, but just a quick example of how quickly technology can help make the world smaller and communicate. I was listening to a podcast where I think it was the president of Argentina was getting interviewed. He could not speak English, and the interviewer could not speak his language. And so they had an AI that was translating for each of them. So for the president, he would hear in his language. For the interviewer, he would hear the response in English. And it was really incredible how it helped them have this great conversation without a translator slowing down, that they could hear it in real time. So that's a great example of something that is evolving, making the world smaller, allowing humans to interact in a way much more quickly than they could in the past. But there's all kinds of little things like that going on. I know when I even just, am in my browser now, clearly there's AI behind trying to anticipate what I'm even going to type, right? It'll get ahead and it's like, that's not what I wanted. But because there's an AI that's sort of learning about the things that you're interested in, making suggestions, these things are going on all over behind the scenes. And I think leaning in and playing with it and understanding it is what's going to change. In the financial world, I mean, we're seeing all different ways. On our investment teams, they're using AIs to help them, with the investment portfolios, and we see it in fraud prevention. We see it with our advisors who meet with clients and those who support our customers, using AIs to have better, well-rounded conversations, so that they're not culling through data like they used to have to. So these are all things that are just transforming in little ways, so that I think about, the way that our company is running now in 5 years will be dramatically differently. And that doesn't mean we're going to get rid of a lot of people. It means we're going to be able to work in ways we never thought we could before by taking advantage of it. And I think every industry is going through that. And I think you see a lot of startups that are leaning into very specific problems that they're learning and AI can help solve. And I think it's just fascinating, all the ideas that are emerging and companies that are emerging to help solve problems across all industries. It's just a great time to be a technologist, I think.
Yeah. And I'm curious, sort of sticking on the subject of young people and those who are just freshly coming into the workforce. When you all are looking at sort of the new workforce, or people are coming into the company, sort of what is, and thinking about sort of AI's implication on the kind of work that they're going to be doing, how they're going to be doing their work, what are some of the specific steps that you would recommend to some of these students or freshly out of college, graduates who are trying to start maybe in the finance industry or whatever industry it may be? What are just some steps that you would recommend that they take to help them stand out and thrive in this new environment? And I'm making an assumption that standing out in today's workforce is probably different than how new graduates would have had to stand out in the past 5 years or past 20 years and so on. And so what are some of those steps or some of those things that you would recommend for them? Of like, these are the things that we would really love to see, or we think would be great to be able to see in order for you to stand out amongst the crowd.
Right. I will say I am ever more and more impressed with each group of kids coming out of school every year. Their ability to leverage technology, I don't think they can work without leveraging technology anymore. And I mean that in a good way. They grew up with technology their whole life. And so there's not an aversion or any apprehension from trying new things. So I think being open-minded, having an awareness of technology, being analytical, knowing how to use some of these things, I think is definitely table stakes anymore. But then also being able to lean in and show that you can think creatively, that you can leverage these things to solve problems differently is certainly differentiating. I think also being able to show diversity of maybe knowledge about different industries. So an example, when you're in technology, understanding what's going on in the health industry as well as in financial services, I think is beneficial, because it shows this broader critical thinking, if you will, and this willingness to want to learn how what could apply to different fields. And I think any students who are doing it, it opens a world that you might not have known about, but also it shows that you can leverage what you know and your skills in different types of problem solving, be it financial services or even within a company like ours, where you might be in retirement services to start, but then you'll go into benefits and protection, or maybe into an investment team, and being able to bring those skills and apply them differently is something that I look for a lot.
Mm-hmm. And sort of with that, I'm curious, obviously you had experience in various industries, various sectors. What was that experience like of, starting out, in sort of the auto industry, and you're also in energy industry and whatnot, and then to eventually end up sort of in the finance industry? What are sort of some of those underlying sort of themes or things that you saw that a thread that sort of made you really stand out and made it maybe easier for you to transition from one industry, one sector to the other, and especially where you're at now in finance?
Right. My first hop, if you will, from automotive was into a bank. And I was really nervous. I had a mentor who had recommended that I, talk to this company that was looking for a leader for a particular department in their company. And I was very worried. I'm like, I grew up in automotive. It's all I know. How could I jump to a bank? But what I learned is there are often times that the things that you bring, capabilities that you bring, an openness to understanding a new industry and being able to apply what you've learned while also learning from those within the company brings a different maybe way of solving a problem, if you will. And so I've always been, and again, mentors taught me this, learn about the industry, learn about the company before you start trying to make changes or influence ways of working or things like that. And so I just think it's really important to have this openness, whether, you stay in a company your whole career, it's constantly staying abreast of what's going on, being able to apply what you're learning to new problems, I think is just something that really helps make your career exciting, but also helps bring new ideas and ways of solving problems, to the surface that may not have emerged if you don't do that.
And you just touched a little bit on this, and it's about mentorship. And I wanted to learn a little bit more of how has mentorship played a role in your career, particularly in your journey to also embrace AI and technology and tech innovation, I should say. And how can students find mentors who can help them guide them during sort of, again, this, fast-paced, technologically AI-enabled workforce? Sort of like, what is that role of a mentor to be able to help them, guide them throughout their career?
Right. I think I would not have the career I have without my network and the mentors that I had. Certainly moving outside of General Motors was very scary. And without one of the mentors who I had met in General Motors, she used to be my leader, and she had left General Motors and recommended me to the company that was looking for the role that I actually went into. I don't think I would have had the courage to go outside of the industry I was in, if you would. And she helped me understand that, hey, you have a lot of different capabilities that you could apply across industries, and don't be afraid to try that. So that was one thing. I would say, I think it's really important to have those people. And early on, I learned that not being afraid to ask other leaders for help or peers and keeping in touch. I would say LinkedIn is so easy now for keeping in touch with people you've worked with over the years. Back when I first started, we didn't have something like that. And so you really had to, be very, I would say, disciplined in keeping in touch with people, even if it was within a company, but especially across industries. And so I always made a point of keeping in touch with people that I've worked with. Many have gone on to be in these huge roles. Others are deep technically that I know I could, reach out to them if I need to. And also be able to ask for advice. And so I think it's really important. You may never know who you might need in the future or who might need your help in the future. And so did we lose our video?
I think we might have lost your video, but your sound is perfect. But I think we might have lost your video.
All right, I'll just keep talking while I'm trying to figure this.
There you go. There we go. We see you now. There you go. Yep.
I don't know. Hey,
just
it's
like
IT.
It's like nothing even happened.
Right, nothing ever happened. But I would say just keep in touch with all of the, you start with students. There are people that I still know from undergrad coming out, of high school that I keep in touch with. I have kept in touch with people in all of the different roles I've had, built the network, and it's really important. So what I would say to students is, don't hesitate to reach out to any leaders and ask for advice. I did it growing throughout my career and always benefited. And I never turned down helping others because I feel that's part of my role is paying it forward of how I benefit. And so creating that network, creating those mentors and keeping in touch, and then just leveraging them when you need to and ask for advice and help. Don't be afraid to do that. I think will really help you.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And thank you for that. And I hope the students who are listening to this are able to heed that advice and really, utilize that advice in the way in which they seek out mentors, but also sort of like the learnings that they seek from those mentors and whatnot. And sometimes, I always find it helpful to have mentors where we're not even talking about career. It's just a life mentor, right? It's just somebody who, hey, I know you were 25 at some point in your life, in your career. What were some of the things, some of the challenges that you were dealing with? What are some of those things that you were thinking about? And then sort of how did you approach those challenges or those various opportunities? And so I think it also helps to just have somebody who can understand what it meant to be 25. Whether in a particular career, in a particular city, or in a particular moment in your life as well. And so I think, sort of having a mentor both for life purposes, if you will, and life questions and whatnot, that is just as important as it is to have a mentor for your career needs and your career questions. We have 2 questions left, but I did just see a question in the chat. So I'm going to ask that question so that person gets answered. And this came from Sujol, and they said, do you think AI enhances or diminishes human creativity? And what do you think will be the biggest shift in how we use AI in the future?
I think it enhances creativity. And I say that because some of the things that we're seeing is you can use it to replace a lot of the repetitive, mundane kind of work that people do. And it frees them up to really solve these hard problems. If you look at AIs and some of the things they're doing, and I'll use an example for code generation. We have probably, I think, over 1,000 engineers that use one of the co-pilots for generating code. And one of the things they see is that it generates code, but there's what's called the edge cases. When you write code, you have to make sure that you understand all the different things that could hit that code, right? The different ways that problem could hit. And you have to make sure that you account for all the different problems that it might need to solve for, right? So there's these edge cases, which are the really hard ones that don't happen very often. But when they do, the code better work, right? Or you'll have a bad experience. And what you see is that the AIs generate the bulk of the code for most of the problem, if you will, but that the edge cases, it doesn't really generate yet that well. So what that allows an engineer to do is get the easy part over with and really focus on the harder part of that problem. So it helps them be more effective because I would rather them be focused on the harder issues than the more obvious mundane ones, if you will. And then it gives them this time to be able to focus on that and not have to worry so much about these easier parts of the problem, if that makes sense. And so I think as a result, engineers can be much more creative. And we see that with a lot of different AIs. As our employees are using them, you'll see them say, oh my gosh, I'm solving problems I never had the time to be able to solve before, because this is giving me that capacity to do that. So that's where I think there'll be way more creativity, because we're kind of freeing ourselves from some of these things that took more of the time, that got in the way of the true harder problem, if you will. And the second part of the question was, what industry? Is that what it was?
It was, what do you think will be the biggest shift in how we use AI in the future?
The biggest shift, I think, is leaning in. So you're starting to hear more about agentic AI, right? These agents. And again, I think at first there was this idea that we're going to have all these agentic employees that are going to do all these things. But again, what we're seeing is we can have these agents take on a lot of the repetitive work that employees or people are doing to free them up to lean into these more harder technical or complex issues, if you will. And so I think that's what we're going to see.
And I had a sort of a follow-up with that, in that, do you see sort of, as you're obviously getting these various AI applications that you're using within different departments and across your organization, do you also see sort of, because a lot of times people always say, well, AI is going to replace, human jobs, or people are going to lose their jobs because of AI. But do you also see sort of like, the more you'll use AI within your organization, that there's actually a different type of employee, right, that you need? You need those people who maybe have a better understanding of the underlying AI technology that you're using within your organization. Is that where you kind of see those opportunities of like, this is the area where AI is actually going to create new roles or new jobs they're going to need to sort of help us actually be able to use this technology for the specific needs and applications that we need for our business organization?
Yes, I will say there's a huge demand for AI. I don't know if we're calling them AI engineers now, but engineers who know AI, analytical people who know how to leverage AI models. There's huge demand for all of that. To your point, Bobby, I do think we're going to see this evolution of how people work. I like to say, how do we make humans superhuman? So I don't want to replace the human. I want to augment them such that they're able to do things they can't do on their own anymore, right? So they're leaning in and being able to really go after these hard, complex things because they have this agent or co-pilot who could help augment how they get their work done. And they do it in a way that solves a problem that we couldn't solve before. So I think there's the jobs themselves will evolve by leveraging these things. But then to your point, you also need people who can build them. And so while I think, engineers will get more efficient and effective, we're still going to need them to build these capabilities that we could leverage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And on a personal note, could you share a moment when you witnessed AI making a significant impact? And I've just asked in your personal life, since we talked a lot about the professional side, but where you saw AI, where you witnessed AI making a significant impact in your personal life, that made you realize just how transformative the technology can be.
So I have to tell you, way back when I started in my career, I actually was writing some learning systems at General Motors right out of school, long before AI was this thing, right? And it was already in existence, but not at the way it is today. Because computers couldn't handle the compute enough, right? They weren't invented yet. But early on, I could see that if we could teach machines to learn or infer things, you could have these huge impacts. So early on, I wrote this system as an example that helped car dealerships better, not predict, but better pick the right types of vehicles to sell to a customer, if you will, based on some things we knew about our customers. So early on, I could see how this could have an impact. I definitely have tried AI in things like March Madness predictions. it didn't help my bracket at all this year, I will say. I did try some leveraging some things like that, but definitely it certainly has saved me a lot of time when I'm searching for things to get summaries and pull things together. I use it all the time for things like that.
Mhm. And sort of with the closing question, obviously this is Pipeline 5 CEO Super Series fireside chat, but Principal Financial Group and Pipeline 5 have, a long-standing sort of relationship and partnership. And Principal has been gracious enough to sort of support Pipeline 5 as well as our mission to teach tech and soft skills to underserved students and prepare them for the future of work. In your experience, what role do corporate and nonprofit partnerships play in helping prepare students for the rapidly changing job market? And how can these collaborations bridge the gap for students who might not have the access to who may not have access to the same resources as others?
Right. I think it's incredibly important. I said earlier on, I feel like part of my responsibility is to pay forward things that I have benefited from. And so I love the partnership that we have. I love that my team, several people from my team are helping students learn how to code and learn a lot of things about the opportunities they might have with a company like Principal, but also across multiple industries. I think we do owe it to the community, every company. It's one of the things I love about Principal is our commitment to the communities that we're in, and partnering with the likes of Pi 515 to help students learn, to give them opportunities that maybe they don't have that others do. I think it's really important. We owe it to the community. I love seeing how the students evolve, even at the beginning of a semester till the end of the program. You see their self-confidence improving. You see the pride that they have, that they've learned how to code something. I remember one of the girls said one time, I didn't think I was smart enough to do this. And can you imagine her just thinking that? I just felt so honored that she had this self-confidence at the end. But I think we all owe it to ourselves, to the community, because I think everybody in any career has benefited from the help of others. And I think we need to all do that so that these kids can be successful in ways that they wouldn't without the help of the partnerships.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for, again, sort of Principal Financial Group's work to support 515 and the work that they do in the community. And very grateful to sort of have that level of support, collaboration, and partnership. And with that, sort of we're at the end of this conversation and really enjoy this conversation. I think the audience learned a lot about both your personal experience, right? How you overcame various challenges to end up in the current role that you're in as the Executive Vice President, as well as Chief Information Officer at Principal Financial Group. But also just thank you for sort of the advice and the insights about how AI is reshaping and changing sort of industries and various sectors and the way in which we work nowadays. But being able to give sort of the younger students and young people today of just like, here are the things that you should think about. Here are the kind of skill sets that you should be looking to sort of, garner and gain in order to be more attractive in the future work that we're heading into. So thank you so much for this conversation. And I think our audience definitely learned a lot from it.
Thank you, Bobby. Thanks for having me. I'm honored and so honored to have the relationship that we have with Pi 515. It's truly just so gratifying watching the progress that we make together. So really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. And thank you for everyone who also watched today's conversation.